Well, again, welcome and thank you all for being here and for inviting me, and also those of you who are online who I can see. And special thanks to um, Roshi Shishin and Shinko, from whom I have learned so much. So, many things. So today, I'm going to talk about a koan, but actually, it's just a few lines from a koan. And I have to say that driving up this morning, it takes over an hour for me to drive from Denver to here. And on my left, there was this huge mountain range and this row of white mountains, and then the foothills, and then these plains, and a clear blue sky. And in a way, I could say nothing else. you know, um, that's maybe what I will now spend some time saying. So one day, Changsha, that's Chosha, this is from the Blue Cliff record, the Hekigan Roku, and it's number 36, Wandering in the Mountains. One day, Changsha went wandering in the mountains. On returning, when he got to the gate, the head monk asked, "Where are you coming from, master?" And Changsha said, "From wandering in the mountains." The head monk asked, "Where did you go?" Changsha said, "First I went pursuing the fragrant grasses. Then I returned following the falling flowers." The head monk said, "How very much like the sense of springtime." And another translation is, "That is the spring mood itself." And Changsha said, "It even surpasses the autumn dew dripping on the lotuses." And then later, Shuido, who's Secho, added this comment, "Thanks for your reply," or "I appreciate these words." And I don't really know why this koan is so up for me. Maybe it's just that it's spring. Maybe a trip I took last month to visit the redwoods. Maybe just noticing the passing of time, feeling this life shifting a little for me. It's possible, of course, to meet this koan going line by line and really exhaust everything that it has to offer. But what's fresh for me right now is this one sentence, and it's a haunting sentence. "First I went pursuing the fragrant grasses, then I returned following the falling flowers." I've been told that these phrases are used in the memorial service for a monk or a nun, but really it's for someone who is committed to the way, following the way, perhaps to express the fullness of a life in practice, the way we set out in pursuit, initially searching for the ox, with the intention to realize our own nature, who and what we are. And then at some point, something turns, and we find that we're entering in another way, or maybe it would be better to say being entered, more mature, maybe more balanced, finding ourselves in the fall of our time, the weather cooling, and maybe the leaves even dropping. But all of this may be a little overly interpretive. Perhaps Changsha was just going for a walk on a nice day. It may have been newly spring, or there was a break in the weather and he could leave his duties and step away for a few hours. When we learn a bit about Changsha, it turns out he was a high-energy teacher. He was called the Tiger. He had a penetrating style, and he was the Dharma heir of one of the Dharma heirs of Nanchuan. So he was a Dharma brother of Chao Cho or Joshu. One time he was with Yangshan, and this is Kyozan, his nephew in Dharma family relations, and they were standing outside looking at the night sky. Yangshan pointed at the bright moon and said, "Everyone has that." And of course, that's true. We all have it, this bright, original mind. But he added, people don't know how to use it. Well, actually, we can't help but use it. We really can't. Right now, each of one of you can't help but express it every time you even just take a breath. Still, it is up to each of us to experience it for ourselves and to make it real so that it can really function. In any case, Changsha threw this back at Yangshan and said, "Well, why don't you use it now?" But he was a little hesitant. He said, "No, you go first." In an instant, Changsha jumped on his chest and knocked him down. And Yangshan said, "Whoa, just like a tiger." And so that's how he got his name. But on this particular day, the tiger in Changsha was quiet, and he simply took off to walk outside in the hills outside the monastery. Nothing to do and nowhere to be. No fixed position to act from, no agenda. Just letting go into his walking. Letting go until he came back and took it up again. Heading out, wandering in the mountains or the hills, turning around and returning. There's an exercise that you might try sometimes. It's called wandering at random. Have any of you done that? This exercise? It's an interesting exercise. The practice is to set a period of time, say 15 minutes, maybe half an hour, in a setting outside, an open, safe place, and just wander. See if you can actually not give yourself a direction to go in. If you can refrain from planning or even the internal commentary that we tend to always have, and simply walk without intention, not knowing where you're going next. Let your hands be open and loose. What happens when you don't manipulate your activity? It can be surprisingly difficult to not do something. We may even get anxious. And how quickly Control Central steps in and tries to organize even this very, very short period of time, creating a structure, maybe even a quality control system. But just to see that karmic groove in ourselves can be so impressive. So I recommend that sometime you try this. Of course, we do have an intention in practicing, especially at the beginning. We each know while we're here today, we have made a choice to be here and to sit together. And that intention, which is really our vow, is how we align our energy with what's most important to us. But for me, and I think for many of us, can our intention at times become a little too solid and even rigid? So that way we may be a little less responsive to changing circumstances, less open to a new way of seeing or being. And then maybe it's a good time to let it loosen. Take a walk, even wander a bit. It's important that this not be about correcting our condition, whatever that may be, just as we don't correct the weather. We practice not to repair or manage how we experience things. Rather, we meet all conditions with awareness. This is realizing the world of the 10 directions as this body. A few weeks ago, I went with my partner on a short trip to visit the redwoods in Northern California. I had always wanted to do this. And in these old growth forests, the average age of these trees is 700 years. And some of these beings are over 1,000 years old. The air smells totally different. It feels different too. The floor of the forest is just covered with new growth based in decaying trunks, fallen broken branches, rotting leaves, dense ferns, insects, and small animals. Really, it's life and death everywhere you look. Some of the huge trees are scorched and burnt. Some are hollowed out, scarred by weather and fire, and some are bent and twisted. But many have straight trunks that stretch very, very high into the sky, where the top branches make a canopy that filters the sun. So to stand next to such a tall one, to rest your hand on the ridges of its bark, restores a sense of our own place, and it tells us, you're just a tiny part of this family, this big, big, infinite family. I just reread a New Yorker article about how insight happens, and this is from cognitive scientists who are using functional MRI and EEGs to look at our brains. And as I did, I think you'll recognize some of this from our own experience. When we start to engage a problem, we bring our attention to it. Our executive cortical function takes over, and we back off from the input of our senses as we start to focus. And then our mind starts to search, looking for connections, possible resolutions in what we already know. This conscious process is where we align and orient ourselves towards whatever it is. And we tend to start in the appropriate areas of our left brain, often in language and linear thought. So there's a time of commitment that takes energy, effort, and it's kind of working against the grain. It feels like work. But for some issues, knowledge and thought are too limited, and we come to an impasse. It's a blind end. We can't go forward, and we can't retreat. It's easy then to imagine at that point that we have failed, or that we've been doing it wrong, or that we need to change our strategy. But actually, this is maybe exactly where we need to be. At this place, attempts to force insight, force seeing, may actually prevent that. We can't think our way in. Anything we think is not it. So when thinking and effort are exhausted, we find that we have come to a stop. We may notice that everything has stopped. And then there can be a kind of relaxing, if we can trust that place. And maybe that's a good time, so to speak, to take a walk. To take a walk in the hills. In other words, we can't force true insight. We have to allow the space for it to happen. It's why we may have insights when we're just waking up, or even when we're very, very tired, worn out, times when we might think wouldn't be so good, or even when we're sick. Sometimes being sick is a great time for insight. Because what's really happening is that below thought, below words, that search continues. It's maybe on the right side of our brain, but it's outside of our conscious awareness. Seemingly out of the blue, it comes all at once, suddenly, with a feeling of absolute certainty. Or it may be that the shift is not even perceptible to us. But while we may not understand it, there's a sense of confidence. Even there can be a sense of recognition. I remember seeing a movie a while ago about Stephen Hawking. He's a theoretical physicist who died a few years ago. And in that movie, another theoretical physicist told this story. He had gotten stuck in his research, and he just found that he couldn't move forward. He kept trying to solve this particular problem and just was stuck. And after being stuck for quite a while in that one place, one day he just got off the bus, and as he walked across the street, all of a sudden he started to feel very, very happy. And as he reached the other side of the street and the curb, he realized that without consciously being aware of it, he knew exactly the direction in which to go, and he knew that it was absolutely right. I wonder, have you experienced this? This has certainly happened to me. Something, a quandary in life, maybe in practice, has taken hold of you, and yet your attempts to resolve it do not appear to be working. Underneath the activities of your daily life, you are haunted. No matter what you are doing, you can't let go, but you feel blocked. You feel like somehow nothing is moving. There seems to be no progress. And then all of a sudden, something shifts, and you find yourself completely open, suddenly at peace. It's as if the battle has died. And everything is clear. One way of seeing this or thinking about this is that it's as if unburdened, the hand of thought just opens. You don't consciously let go. Rather, you find that you have been let go. And it's irrevocable. You can't go back to where you were before, to that stuck place. Anyone who practices or does creative work or struggles with great doubt, this underlying deep question of who and what we are, we come to know this place. And we even learn to trust that place where we get stuck and where it seems that we are blocked, where the path seems to stop and it's like being at the edge of a dark cliff. We learn to be patient there, to be willing to be not knowing, and to feel that our intention, our conscious intention, may have failed. Hopes and dreams for the future also just seem like fantasies. They just die. All we can do is open our hands and receive what can be given, stripped back to the time when we were so very, very young, with very innocent, simple minds. So just like children before a tree of 1,000 years, we just listen and look. Really, we don't need to take a walk or go to any other place. One time, Chosha told his monks, "The entire universe is your eye. The entire universe is this complete body. The entire universe is your own luminescence. The entire universe is within your own luminescence. In the entire universe, there is no one who is not your own self. We see out of its eyes and hear out of its ears. That entire universe, it must also be the person next to you clearing their throat, that crumpled wrapper on the sidewalk, which is dirty and torn. Maybe even the frantic talking heads on TV or the fighting in Sudan. Really, can anything be left out? Each of us is not left out. Another time, a monk asked, "Teachers say to abide by sitting on the Bodhi seat. What is that seat?" And he answered, "Just now I'm sitting. Just now you're standing. Just now writing. Just now talking. Just now a Dharma brother walks on the arm of his wife to the bathroom of his hospital room. Just now I'm talking with you this morning. In a while, I'll drive home and I'll take my walk, maybe with our dog Zoe. First, I went pursuing fragrant grasses. Then I returned following the falling flowers. Is that enough? Can it be complete just like that? A full season, a full life, a complete moment? Somehow, I find that I imagine that Changsha's mind as he walked was already settled and open. He too just put one foot in front of the other, walking through a narrow mountain pass of 49 curves, just as we did just now in the Zendo. One step up, one step down. One step up, one step down. Perhaps just another crazy life, completely straight. Once Changsha was asked, "How do you turn the mountains, rivers, and the great earth and return to the self?" He said, "How do you turn the self and return to the mountains, rivers, and the great earth?" A blue sky, the buzzing of insects, and the pale warmth of the sun touch his skin. Just now I saw a bird on the sill in the Zendo, balancing on rocks, crossing a thin, muddy stream. A quiet breeze which may chill our skin. Maybe the perfume of grasses leads him on. Of course, he will return. Of course, summer and then autumn will come. The nights will lengthen and it will be dark again. But just now, he is wandering in the mountains. And just now, for all of us, it's spring.